Wendy Darling strikes out in an attempt to rescue her brother Michael from the clutches of the evil Peter Pan. Along the way, she meets Tinkerbell, who will be seen taking heroin, believing that it's pixie dust. The story begins with a father telling his son the story of Peter Pan. After some time, a missing child poster is posted outside a circus, where Peter Pan is performing on stage. Peter Pan points to a child in the audience and gives him balloons. A child lives alone with his mother in a house. One morning, his mother wakes him up from the sofa and goes to freshen up. Meanwhile, the door to the basement creaks open slightly, and a strange man inside calls out to the child. The child starts running away, frightened, but the man traps him with his words and beckons him to come closer. He introduces himself as Peter Pan from the stories and tempts the child, saying he will take him to a dreamland where there are no mothers and no rules. Their conversation is overheard by the child's mother, who rushes into the room and tries to save her child from Peter Pan. She manages to pull her child away and heads to the kitchen to grab a knife. She comforts her child and returns to the room, intent on killing Peter Pan. But Peter Pan, hiding under the table, launches a surprise attack on the mother, severing her foot. The mother attempts to fight back, tearing Peter Pan's mouth. Enraged, Peter Pan throws her onto the table, stabs her repeatedly, and then slashes her skull with the knife. In a fit of brutality, he rips her skull apart with his bare hands. The mother screams in agony, covered in blood, but is unable to defend herself. Then Peter Pan, with wounded face, turns to the child. But no one knows what happens to the child next. 15 years later, Michael is getting ready for school after breakfast with his family. His sister suddenly remembers that it's Michael's birthday today. She rushes after him, stops him from cycling, and offers to drive him to school in their car. The scene shifts to an old mansion, where a woman injects herself with pixie dust in her badly burned arm. Meanwhile, a man with a severely burned mouth is brushing his teeth, which causes him to start coughing and bleeding. After getting ready, they both board the Neverland bus. The man enters a shop, steps on a teddy bear on the floor. Then he picks up a strange mask from the display and puts it on. The shopkeeper, who has been watching him on camera, approaches the man to ask him to pay for the mask. However, the strange man turns around and brutally stabs the shopkeeper in the throat with a knife, causing blood to spill everywhere. The shopkeeper falls to the ground, dying. The shopkeeper's blood splatters onto the man's mask. The man calmly cleans the bloody knife with his jacket and leaves the shop, abandoning the dying shopkeeper. At school, Joey gives Michael a birthday gift, a picture of the two of them. During recess, Michael's sister waits for him outside the school, where the Neverland bus is also parked. Wendy meets her friend, and they chat while Michael starts cycling home, unaware of the wire stretched across the road. He collides with the wire, causing him to fall into the bushes. As he gets up, he sees the Neverland bus parked in front of him. Michael starts walking backward when the masked man from earlier calls out to him. Michael turns to run but trips and falls. Despite his screams, the strange man quickly grabs him and takes him away in the bus. Wendy waits for her brother outside the school in their car till evening. When she inquires about Michael at the school reception, she's told that he's already left. Meanwhile, Michael finds himself trapped in a room with no phone signal. When the door opens, Michael quickly hides his phone. The masked man enters carrying food and removes his mask, revealing the severely burned left side of his face, which makes him appear even more terrifying. He introduces himself as Peter Pan, blaming his mother for his disfiguring condition. Peter Pan tells Michael that when his mother did terrible things to him, he would close his eyes, advising Michael to do the same. Peter Pan tries to tempt Michael with the promise of taking him to Neverland, a place where everything is dreamlike. A policeman shows Michael's family the school's CCTV footage, where Michael is seen leaving the school, but Wendy was distracted and didn't notice him. Meanwhile, Peter Pan makes a mysterious call to the family's telecom, playing eerie cartoon music before telling them not to worry about Michael. As Michael lies on a bed, crying and staring a creepy doll in front of him, Peter Pan arrives, telling Michael to go to sleep before leaving. Michael gets up and runs after Peter Pan, entering a storeroom filled with packaged dummies of various characters. Michael tries to open the window lock by climbing onto a box of toys, but his foot slips and he falls. It seems like Peter Pan will emerge from one of the dummies. Michael gets up and starts examining the dummies when Peter Pan suddenly appears from among them, scaring Michael, who falls to the ground. Then Peter Pan throws Michael back into the room and notices the picture given by Joey. He mentions bringing Joey to Michael. The next morning, Wendy meets with Timmy's father, a lost boy, along with Joey and his sister. Timmy's father told them that one day, Timmy was on the way home from school and met Peter Pan, who gave him balloons and took him away in the Neverland bus. Timmy never returned. A school bus drives by, and Peter Pan is seen fixing his Neverland bus on the side of the road. As the driver approaches him, Peter Pan hides knife in hand. In a shocking act of violence, Peter Pan brutally kills the driver by slitting his throat. Then Peter Pan boards the school bus, removes his mask, and asks the children who wants to go to Neverland with him. The children scream and desperately try to escape from Peter Pan. In Peter Pan's hideout, Michael waits for mobile signals in front of a TV playing a crocodile documentary. He hides his mobile phone on hearing footsteps. Tinker Bell arrives, who Peter Pan has been holding captive with the promise of turning her into a fairy using magic one day, on the condition that she follows his guidance. Meanwhile, John arrives at Wendy's place, panicked, and informs her about the school bus incident, the same bus where Peter Pan was spotted. He had been murdered the children brutally and dumped in the jungle. On the other side, Peter Pan returns home after killing the children and washes his blood-stained hands. He talks to himself, and a shadow appears on the wall. Peter Pan levitates in the air. Tinker Bell arrives and asks Peter Pan about the children. Enraged, Peter Pan turns on her, questioning who she is to ask him questions. In a fit of rage, he brutally beats Tinker Bell with a belt. Meanwhile, Wendy stays overnight at Joey's house. Peter Pan sits in his Neverland bus outside, looking at pictures of Joey and Michael. Wendy's phone dies while she's watching news. Everyone else is asleep. Peter Pan tries to enter the house through the windows but fails. Then he enters through the front door and approaches Joey's sister, who's sleeping on the couch. As she opens her eyes, Peter Pan stands before her, signaling her to remain silent and brutally stab her to death. Wendy is charging her phone when she hears screams. She opens the door. She sees Joey's father lying on the ground, bleeding from his throat. Peter Pan appears and continues stabbing him. Wendy locks the door, packs her belongings, and hides somewhere. Peter Pan enters the room covered in blood and searches everywhere but can't find her. Wendy hides in the side gallery, then sneaks into the room where outside Joey's father's dead body lies. Mel approaches Wendy with tied hands and asks her to untie her. Peter Pan appears and Wendy flees to the other side of the bed full of blood. Peter Pan stabs Mel with a knife and then puts a polythene bag over her head, suffocating her. Mel dies and Wendy watches from under the bed. Peter Pan looks at a family photo and leaves, assuming he has killed everyone in the house except Joey. Wendy looks out the window and sees Peter Pan taking Joey away. Wendy's phone is dead, which is her own foolishness, as she should have kept it charged in case of emergencies like Michael trying to contact her or receiving news about him. Wendy quickly grabs her phone and charger and rushes down the stairs, tripping and falling near her friend's brutally murdered body, covered in blood. Wendy grabs the cabin keys and flees the house, starting her car to chase Peter Pan's Neverland bus. Inside the bus, Peter Pan and Tinker Bell seem happy, while Joey sits terrified and crying in the back seat. During the journey, morning arrives. Peter Pan brings Joey to his hideout, and Wendy follows them, rushing inside and hiding in a cupboard in a room. Peter Pan enters the room to change his clothes, and Wendy quietly observes the scars on his body. Peter Pan gets ready and takes Joey to meet Michael. Joey is scared that Peter Pan will hurt him, but Tinker Bell reassures him that Peter Pan will help, not hurt. Peter Pan tempts Joey with the promise of Neverland, asking who will go first, then extends his hand to Joey. Michael tries to stop Joey, but Joey falls for Peter Pan's words and joins him. Michael gets up and chases after them, but Tinker Bell pushes him, making him fall and reassures him. Michael cries, saying Peter Pan is a liar. Meanwhile, Wendy enters the kitchen to charge her phone and freezes upon hearing Peter Pan's voice, who is chasing after Joey. Wendy picks up a knife and searches the house, arriving at a room with a puzzle lock. She opens the lock, but Tinker Bell appears. Wendy asks Tinker Bell for help, saying she's there to take her brother Michael back home. Tinker Bell allows Wendy to enter the room, where Peter Pan passes by carrying Joey. Wendy enters the room searching, but finds no one. Suddenly, Michael sneaks up behind her, and Wendy runs to hug her brother. In the kitchen, Tinker Bell looks worried. Peter Pan notices her concern and asks if everything is okay. He then prepares an injection and hands it to Tinker Bell. Just then, Wendy's phone on charging starts ringing. Peter Pan sees the phone and yells at Tinker Bell, asking who else is in the house. In the room, Wendy tries to escape with Michael, but Peter Pan approaches and finds the unlocked door. Wendy hides, and Peter Pan searches the room, scaring Michael with his killing methods. Wendy hides behind a giant teddy bear, then pushes it towards Peter Pan and escapes with Michael. However, Tinker Bell catches up and grabs Wendy's neck. Wendy reminds Tinker Bell of her family, and Tinker Bell becomes emotional, allowing Wendy and Michael to escape. Peter Pan arrives, questioning Tinker Bell, but she leaves without responding. Michael hides under the kitchen table, and Wendy went through a secret passage. Michael finds Wendy's phone and makes an emergency call. Tinker Bell and Peter Pan enter the kitchen. Tinker Bell confronts Peter Pan, accusing him of betraying her. Meanwhile, Wendy reaches a shed, finding a coffin with a lantern. She opens the coffin, revealing Joey inside. In the kitchen, Peter Pan brutally attacks Tinker Bell, breaking her arm, throwing her down, and then cutting her arm with a knife. Tinker Bell screams in agony as Peter Pan mercilessly injures her. Michael, hiding under the table, witnesses the horrific scene. Peter Pan then cuts off Tinker Bell's other arm. On the other hand, Wendy breaks the window, rescues Joey, and tells him to run away without looking back. Joey runs away and Wendy returns, finding a photo of a child on the ground. She moves forward and encounters a frightening man who screams, alerting Peter Pan. Michael, hiding under the table, kicks Peter Pan's leg and escapes. Peter Pan tries to catch him, but Michael kicks him again and runs away. On the other side, Wendy flees from the man, who is chained and in a terrible state, appearing like a terrifying ghost. The man begs Wendy for help. She wants to help him, but she prioritizes saving Michael upon hearing Peter Pan's voice and runs away. As Wendy enters the hallway, Peter Pan attacks her from behind, causing her to fall. To save herself, Wendy tries to drag herself backward. Peter Pan attempts to grab her, but Wendy kicks him. Peter Pan pounces on Wendy, and she scratched his face. In retaliation, Peter Pan bites off Wendy's fingers, causing her to scream in pain. With great effort, Wendy frees herself and runs to the kitchen, grabbing objects and throwing them at Peter Pan. Peter Pan picks Wendy up and throws her onto the table, where she falls beside Tinker Bell. Tinker Bell, with great difficulty, encourages Wendy. Enraged, Peter Pan steps on Tinker Bell's mouth, crushing her to die. Wendy picks up the injection from the ground and stabs Peter Pan in the neck when he attacks her, causing his vision to blur. A cartoonish shadow appears on the wall, pointing towards Wendy, who struggles to get up and enters the room filled with dummies, but her foot steps on broken glass, causing her to bleed. Wendy removes the glass from her shoe and bandages her hand using a tap. Meanwhile, Peter Pan bursts into the room and sees the blood, and Wendy's shoe prints on the floor. He smashes the dummies with a rod. a toy house lights up and plays music, and Peter Pan enters it. Wendy attacks Peter Pan from behind and runs away, while Michael is hiding in a room, whispering for Wendy. Peter Pan approaches the door, facing Michael. Michael forcefully slams the door on Peter Pan's face, causing him to fall. Michael tries to escape, but Peter Pan, with a blood-filled mouth, attacks him and starts choking him. Wendy arrives from behind and chokes Peter Pan's neck with a stick. Peter Pan frees himself and attacks Wendy, but she throws a closet at Peter Pan and runs away. Wendy has a piece of glass stuck in her neck, causing her to bleed. She winces in pain as she removes the glass from her neck. Then Peter Pan arrives, and Wendy, despite her injuries, puts up a fierce fight against him. As Peter Pan falls, he picks up a nearby mask, puts it on, and asks Wendy for help. However, Wendy doesn't fall for his trick and starts hitting him with a stick. Peter Pan grabs the stick from Wendy and throws it away. Then Wendy pokes Peter Pan's eyes with her thumbs, causing him to scream in pain, who grab Wendy's injured neck, making her scream in agony. Just then, Michael arrives from behind and hits Peter Pan with a stick, making him fall. Then Michael hits Peter Pan's mask with the stick, further disfiguring his face. Seeing Michael's anger, Wendy calls her brother to her side and hugs him. Peter Pan, covered in blood, tries to get up again, but Wendy asks him, "You go to Neverland alone?" Just then, the captive man from the basement appears, and Peter Pan sees his own death. The man quickly stabbed Peter Pan and drags him away, while Wendy, covered in blood, sits with Michael hidden in her lap, and the sound of police sirens can be heard. The movie ends with Michael's family celebrating his birthday, but Wendy receives a mysterious call on the phone, which only plays Peter Pan's music, leaving her disturbed. If you like this movie, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel.